This episode is an interview with Baraka May, who did the solo vocals for Chicken in the Pot in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, but you can call me Xanthi, and today we have another bonus episode for solo season. I am stoked to be talking to Baraka May, who sang the cult classic, I'm going to say, our favorite piece of source music, Chicken in the Pot. I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit and just bring you in with a little intro here.
It's good intro music.
It really is. We're getting in the mood here.
Such a jam, right?
It really is.
It's a bop.
I've listened to this so many times. Like at one point I had it playing for I walked away from my computer and I saw that it had played 300 times over the course of a couple days.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
So Huttese now. You're fluent in the language. It's like full
fluent.
Language immersion.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Where do we even start? Well, on that version, you're singing both parts, the lead and I don't know what to call it, the backup.
The chicken.
Exactly, the little chicken. This is, okay, there are a lot of questions that I want to ask you today, and some of them are focused on just what it's like being a session singer and what your job entails, sort of what do you do when you're in the studio like this? We do have some sneak peeks thanks to John Powell posting Instagram video of you singing this, basically recording with him at his studio. And then I know that you have a lot of stories that you remember from doing this. You have the lyrics that you remember singing and everything. So we're going to get into all of that. Thank you so much for coming on Star Wars Music Minute.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I'm a Star Wars nerd. My husband's a Star Wars nerd. So it was definitely kind of unreal to actually be part of this. And yeah,
so you were
super cool.
So you were already a big fan before even doing this?
I feel like I've always been super into epic films and trilogies and world building and kind of that fantasy. But my husband is much more of a Star Wars super fan. He's a trivia just whiz with everything. I actually, when I was pregnant and I couldn't fall asleep and I was super uncomfortable, I would say Mark, can you just tell me a story? Just tell me a Star Wars. And my husband would literally tell me scene by scene, the entire film of A New Hope. And then I would fall asleep to that. And then I'd wake up when did I fall asleep? He's like, well, you started twitching right when Obi-Wan, he always knows when I'm asleep because I start twitching. But my husband will tell me in the most absolute detail every single scene. And if I want to get on my husband's nerves, I'll mix up TIE fighters and X-Wings.
Oh my God.
So he's the super fan, but I very much am a fan.
But you got to be in a Star Wars, so
I've actually been in 2 Star Wars because I sang in Rogue One. I sang in the choir for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, which we did 2 sessions for with Michael Giacchino. So that was my first involvement in the franchise officially.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah. We'll do a different interview for that one.
Yeah, exactly. So for something like Chicken in the Pot, on Solo: A Star Wars Story, you're credited as a soloist because you are a soloist. You're not singing in a whole choir. How did this come about? How did you get chosen to do this?
Yes. Well, on a full moon, I prayed to. No, I'm just joking. This whole business of session singing and singing for films and TV, and it is a combination of relationships and timing, opportunities, luck, and skills, all sort of morphing together. It's people knowing one another through the course of long-term collaboration. So especially as a singer, we don't have agents or managers or the sort of formal audition process that actors go through where they get sent sides and there's a casting professional. So with us, we have vocal contractors, which every one of us can be, and most of us have been at some point if we're long-term in the industry, a vocal contractor. It's simply a composer or a music supervisor or somebody who is in the decision-making process on music who turns to somebody that they trust and know to find them the talent in the singers. And I myself am a vocal contractor, and I know that you're a violinist. You work with orchestral contractors who put together orchestras of all types, really.
Mm-hmm. And so ensembles that are not just orchestras.
Right, exactly. So I've had vocal contractors bring me in for large choirs or solos or quartets or everything that you can imagine. And then stylistically, it could be all women, it could be children, it could be a barbershop quartet sound, or so we contract based on what the musical need is. So in this case, John Powell has one of the most greatest humans alive as his vocal contractor. Her name is Edie Lehman-Boddicker, and I just want to be Edie when I grow up. I love and adore her. She is a beast in every sense of the word. She's an incredible musician and vocalist and has put so many of the choirs and vocals together for numerous composers and projects in LA. And so John asked Edie for a soloist who could do, this style. I'm actually not sure what that conversation was, what he asked for, whether it was alto or soprano or somebody who could be weird with their voice, which is definitely me. I love being weird with my voice. And I have a knack for languages and accents because I'm super, super nerdy about tongue placement and vowel manipulation and where the lip forms to why does French sound different than German, just in an English accent, for example. And in where is everything sitting in the palette and I like doing impressions of other singers and, celebrity impressions. So I was starting to get known a bit more. I do a lot of animation work. And I think at that point, which was 2017, I had already been touring with Danny Elfman, doing character voices for Nightmare Before Christmas. And so Edie knew me and trusted me to be weird and playful. So she recommended me and brought me in. And it was just a demo. It was not, you got the job. It was just, hey, production wants me to do a few demos for this. We're not sure what's going to go in the scene. He actually had a second song, totally different than Chicken in the Pot, with guys. And it was like a cover of like a Bruno Mars sort of thing. It was totally different. And so I did not go in being like, I'm going to be, it was just, we're playing at the mic. I had also worked with John Powell through Edie on Rio. Or I think it was the sequel, Rio 2. And that was very, very playful and experimental. I'd also worked on Ice Age 4, I think, Continental Drift with him. And I'd done the Lorax with him. All of these were in choirs. Although my work on Rio 2 was a small group. I think it was just an octet at his home studio. And then I'd also done a quartet with him at his studio with Edie where it was for Ferdinand the Bull. I think all of this was this was all before solo. And so when I did Ferdinand the Bull, that was highly experimental. We were doing all sorts of impressions and accents and walla and improv, and we were doing spoken stuff. It was just one of the most playful sessions I've ever been a part of. So I think I had sort of earned my stripes, so to speak, with Edie and John. Like they knew, Baraka could come in and just make up what this is going to sound like. Because obviously none of us speak these Star Wars languages. Right. So we have to come up with what it's going to sound like from a lounge singer. And so
oh my gosh,
that's how the job started. But I have more details because there was more than one session for this.
Okay. There's already like many questions that I have. So let me get some questions in right. Okay. So Edie contracted you, but like you had this I listened to your reel and like a lot of your demos that are on your SoundCloud, that are on your website and everything. You have an outrageous like range of what you can do with your voice. It's so incredible. Your voice is really amazing. And
thank you.
And like, how do you, at the risk of just being like, how do you even do that? Like, okay, what I'm hearing is like you sing in, like I see on your resume, like you're soprano and alto at some points. Like you kind of defy like voice range boundaries. And then you're doing all different styles, like, and I mean like tons of different styles that are like kind of, that are quite dramatic. Like you're doing like cartoony kids voices. You're doing like almost like Ursula, like really big and deep voices. Like it's truly like all over the place, and the accents and the like languages and everything. Like I just like, what was your training like? Like how many languages do you have fluent diction in? Like how?
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh. This is so fun to geek out on. Honestly, I think the operative word is play. When you sit down with your violin, what are you doing to it? You are playing the violin. I play the piano. We play the guitar. And I feel like for some reason, like I swear this is my mission in life, is to grab singers and say, play, just play with your voice and experiment with it. And I think that was really my training. Was I grew up with a rigorous classical piano background. I played piano since I was 5 classically, and I did jazz, but I also was doing musical theater, and I loved Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. I grew up singing at a gospel church. We were the only white family in my church, and I led worship, and I was riffing. I was always encouraged to riff and kind of take risks. And then I was really heavily into choral music, and I did a lot of straight tone and jazz and inner parts. And I sort of became everybody's utility singer. So on some songs I was singing tenor, and some songs I was singing soprano 1. And, oh, Baraka, you sing it up the octave. And, you know, it just, so I think I was always encouraged, as long as I can remember, to just jump around and cover things. And so I never formed some ego of like, well, I'm a soprano, or, well, I only belt, or I'm only classical. It just, as long as I can remember, was constantly rotating. And also not just range-wise and style-wise, but even group-wise. Like I'm part of a group, and now I'm a soloist. And so I think sometimes it's not so much your range that makes you a soprano or an alto or a soloist or a group singer. It's the role that you operate. So when I operate as an alto, usually you have to sing out a little bit harder because the inner voices get lost. Mm-hmm. And when you operate as a soprano, you need to lighten up and be the cherry on top. And so forth. A group singer needs to tuck in and blend. There's a whole way of operating, whereas a soloist needs to step out and make things their own and take some liberties. So yeah, I think it's more mental and emotional shifting than it is totally vocal shifting. Although, yeah, you got to shift your voice with it too.
Well, totally. But I feel like with probably playing any instrument, but I think especially with singing, what emotionally you're feeling, or like if you're emotionally inhibited, I feel like that shows up immediately in your voice. And so you can't really have one without the other. Like it can't just be like a purely vocal shift. Like it kind of comes from much more inside.
Yes, totally. And especially when you're like, I'm an alien, or I'm a really soulful snail, or I'm a whatever the character, which I played a soulful snail who's just like feeling herself, you know, like it's totally acting. And actually session singers are part of SAG for a reason, because we are considered actors, you know, in terms of how we're using our voices to communicate fear or love or whatever other range of emotions. And you have to totally sell that character and embody it.
Oh, totally. It makes perfect sense. Like I know you're a voice actor as well. And especially when you're doing like film work, and and animation work and things where you're really occupying the space of a very specific character, whether it's, this this chanteuse in Solo, a Star Wars story, like aboard this yacht, or, like a soulful snail or whatever, like a little kid with like with a lisp or like with a certain accent that you like. I feel like you have to, and you do a really great job at this, like fully embody that role. And I guess I'm just really impressed that like, how do you, okay, you know how like, I don't know if you have this problem, but like sometimes there are like little slips where like it's easy to, I don't know, let one of your own like tendencies come out. How do you like put that final polish on a voice that you're doing so that the seams are kind of contained? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And like in voiceover, they'll be like, you're losing the voice. Like we're losing the character. So you have to funnel everything. It's almost like putting a filter, but it's auditory and it's muscular. So, the vocal cords are muscles. And I feel very much like what we do as singers at that level is athletic. And so it's athletic conditioning of the muscle memory, it's repetition, it's committing. Like this is what my body has to turn into. You think of Simone Biles. She's not what she has turned her body into to be able to do what she does as a gymnast is what singers are doing and what violinists are doing. I can't hold the violin the way you do. Like the proper, my wrist bends when I, and my pinky flattens. And I'm like, okay, you have to curl these fingers and they all want to collapse because you've created sort of this, you've morphed your body into going to the instrument. And so this happens constantly as a singer. Okay, now I'm a child. So my whole face has to feel smaller. My tongue has to occupy a smaller mouth. My larynx has to be smaller and higher. Everything has to come through a smaller space because a child is a smaller person. And so in the case of this character, it was a lot of combination of like, okay, we want a little Brazilian bossa nova, so some nasal, but we also wanted a little bit breathy, and we don't want it to sound very human. And so it was this combination of both nasal and breathy, and then really spilling into the language work so that when you do language work, German, Italian, French, Hebrew, you realize how much your tongue is conditioned a certain way. So if you hear like babies babbling in America versus babies babbling in France, the babbling is different.
Interesting.
Right? So they've done studies where, kids in blah, 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 and then you go to France and it's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like totally different formation of what they're hearing all around them before they can actually create their own language. So, right?
Yeah, totally. That's interesting. Oh, the pronunciation that you, took on for this character is really fascinating because the language that you are speaking, like, technically speaking in Star Wars, in the Star Wars universe, you're speaking Huttese. And people have commented that it's almost like it sounds like a different dialect of Huttese because it's like a much like more smooth, like this isn't the same kind of Huttese that Jabba the Hutt would speak in.
Right.
And so I'm just curious, like okay, so you did have an idea going in of what dialect would be, or not dialect, but like what you said, I don't know, what kind of mishmash of accents they wanted. Did you know anything else? I know that the language did change at some point.
Yes. So, the original language I did this in 2017 was actually Sith.
What?
You're getting the inside scoop. So my very first session on this was in 2017 while I was pregnant, or maybe it was in the beginning of 2018. I was definitely pregnant for the first session. And it was in Sith. And this was back when John wasn't sure if they were going to do this sort of like guy group thing with it was, I think was like a Bruno Mars cover, or if he was going to do this original song with me duetting as both. And so I did both characters in Sith. And
to the same tune.
Same song, which I also have more stories about what it was originally versus what it became. And so did that, didn't hear back for a little while. So I figured, you do so many demos that just don't see the light of day. And it's not like you're not hopeful. You just have a good sense of like, this might not see the light of day, right? They might cancel the song. They might change it. They might want a different singer. They might want a guy. They might choose the other song. And so a few months later, I have my daughter, and then I'm like, just had a baby, like a few weeks after childbirth, and I'm, pumping breast milk. And John says, hey, so sounds like they're going to go with this song, but apparently Sith is not one of the languages that they have approved of for the franchise. Like it's something to do with like, it's not owned. Like they just want to make sure it's like one of the languages that the movie franchises has signed off on. And he's like, I didn't know this. John wrote the lyrics and then put it through a Star Wars language translator. And it was ended up being a language sheet. So he said, well, he said, they actually loved your demo. They want you to do the exact same thing. That's what they want. So this is going to be tricky, but can you please replicate exactly what you did, but in this other language, which is Huttese? And so we listened down to like, okay, well, what did I do months ago? Like we have to try to match my own voice, which I do. I do a lot of voice matching. It's like, match me. And then we played, there was so much play with the tempo, actually. So the song was originally very fast.
Oh.
It was like it was such a fast song. And so
and you recorded it fast originally?
I recorded it fast, yeah. It was like a samba almost.
Okay.
And so and the language work, it was, I wish I had all the Sith lyrics. I might have them somewhere, but I have the Huttese lyrics here and I have the sheet music. But anyway, so we go in and he's like, since you recorded this, which was so upbeat, this is what we ended up doing with it. And it was like, I'm like, whoa, this song is so fast, so slow. Like it just totally different. It sounded like everybody was like on drugs in comparison to what it started as.
This explains so much about the way it sounds.
Yes. And so he was like, all right, I want to play with this. I want to record it at the new tempo, but I also want to record it at the old tempo and then slow it down. And so we had the best day of, again, just playful, experimental. Let's sing it up a half step, and then I will afterwards bring it down a half step so your voice sounds a little different. Like we were just we tried it many tempos, many keys. And so what you ended up all hearing was the very fast tempo slowed down, but it was in that key.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay, so it was slowed down, but not like pitch shifted. Like it was just
not pitch shifted.
Oh,
so that's
my
me.
Gosh.
So what you're hearing is probably something like that tempo. And so I had to remember, like when he slows it down, you need to hear all the little nuances, the nasal, the breathy. You need to hear like her dropping off. And also the translation in English is that she's hungry and she wants to eat the chicken. Mm-hmm. And so, so I needed to sound hungry. But also I needed to sound like sophisticated. Like he showed me the picture of her like this. And he said, and if you can make it sound like there's something over your face, maybe, like I'm not sure. So I'm like, cool. Huttese, sound like I did 2 months ago. Yes, there's a thing on my face. I'm hungry, but I'm also sophisticated. So you're just putting all of these together into the pot, so to speak. And you're going, okay, I'm like lusty and hungry and sophisticated, and there's something on my mouth, and, sound like you're not from this world. And it's, the pronunciation was up to me. So John wasn't saying like, ooh, pronounce it this way. I would kind of say, well, what if we did more of like a growl, like, what is that called? When you gutturalize the rolled R. And, he played me some Jabba the Hutt talking too. But, going back to your question about Jabba the Hutt's use of the language, I mean, I speak English and other people speak English, but somebody based on their education or their I guess their comfort with public speaking, or many people still, they're going to slang it up, or they're going to speak more eloquently, or Jabba the Hutt is harsh by nature and she's sophisticated. So
Absolutely.
Even within
Plus
the confines
singing,
of...
And that alone can change the way that you pronounce things.
Right. So, yeah, we didn't go at length into, mi, sa, la. It was very... make it your own. Like John was just, let's play. And John is like that. He's one of the most playful, experimental, open-minded. Let's just try it a bunch of ways. Let's see what that sounds like. What about this? Ooh, try it. And so it ended up, he really liked when I would do it fast. It would almost be really precise the first take, right? Da 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 da. Da, 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 whatever. And so, but when he would slow it down, you could really draw out stuff. So I had to imagine it was going to be slowed down. So I would add things as I went, but it was really fast. So I tried to, like, for example, at the end of a phrase, like I would try to draw things out because I knew that once it was slowed down, that would be really much more impactful.
Yes. Oh my goodness. This is fascinating. Okay, so on this show, we basically analyze the music in the film 5 minutes at a time. So in minutes 41 through 45 of this movie is when a Chicken in the Pot song comes on. And so for that episode, Ender Smith, aka Auric Fonts, was the guest, and we had like almost a 4-hour episode basically on Chicken in the Pot alone. And so he did some like transcriptions of like what things sounded like, and then like also like separated the vocal, like isolated the vocals from like the instrumental, and we speculated very wildly about like how this may have been notated and like why it sounds like microtonal, and like what in universe, what potentially would this character have, how would this character have learned the song, etc. So I'm just gonna, just for kicks, I'm gonna show you, let's see. Nope, wrong screenshot. No, that's my transcription of the strings, because we also got into that.
Yes.
I'll bring it up. But in the meantime, while I find it, I'm just going to show you this. And I want to know if like you at what point you were able to see these images and see who you were channeling. Oh yeah. I mean, so when I did the session, John showed me these pictures. Mm-hmm. And so go ahead. Oh no. And when you were performing it, you like this actress had already did her part. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah. Cause John Powell posted that video where this is playing on the screen and her mouth is covered. So it's not like yeah. I mean, I wasn't there, for her shooting, but I would imagine that there was probably just some sort of sample music playing and they're like, pretend you're singing, because we had not recorded. Although at that point, this is just speculation, but I think when I first did the Sith demo, that did not exist. There was no woman. There was no, wait, now I'm confusing myself, because John always said there was this little alien that looked like a chicken. Right. And so I'm going to take that back, because the first session in Sith,
he had written the picture with the woman and the chicken, and it seemed like he was just going to make up the song that she wanted to eat him. So, but I don't know if I saw the picture the first time. I think the second time when I came in and they knew they wanted my version, but just in Huttese, that's when I could see picture. That's when it was slowed down. That was all new information for me.
That makes more sense because I know that, because John, that corroborates with what he has said in interviews, which is that Chicken in the Pot was one of the first things that he did on this project, period, with a bunch of other source music based on just the image of the chicken in the pot. And so it makes sense that if they decided to go with that, they would then shoot it. And then when you had to redo it, then you could see what they shot.
What's with this E double flat situation here?
Right. Okay. So
rude.
I'm showing
That's not what I have my music right here.
Well, right. So like this is a transcription of what you're singing. And so what I think is interesting is that like transcriptions happen after the fact. They just, they describe what the transcriber is hearing, which doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the performer was. Those doesn't necessarily mean those are the instructions the performer had. So I am fascinated. First, let me ask, just like, were all the microtonal stuff, like here we have double flats, but also we have like, I don't know, he did multiple versions of this. Some of them were like 5 cents, like some of them went into great detail. Was that just your own improvisation?
Yeah. So, John is so fantastic at just, again, experimentation after the fact. So we were never aiming for specific cents on each pitch. It was more the delivery, and he did not want perfection. He did not want clean singing. He wanted it to sound alien. And so bending pitches was, especially because we would listen to it fast and we listened to it slow and say, oh my gosh, okay, let me bend this more, because when it was drawn out, it was so cool. Mm. So we would play with little portamento slides. And just, for fun, I'll show you. So the way that John, and a lot of film composers do this, they'll just write their sheet music as the baseline of no key signature. And then all of the accidentals will be put in as they come. So instead of being written in the actual key that this transcriber did it in, I just have the written flats and sharps and naturals. Mm. So yeah, like my sheet music is da 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 da, and so then it was just again hungry, matching your old take, sounding out, all of the other things but also it's going to be slowed down. So draw everything out, make more of a relationship between all the notes than what I just does for you when I'm just singing the notes as if I'm playing them on a piano. When a piano is just essentially hitting buttons, right? I press the C, I press the B flat. But with the singing voice, or with the human voice, it's like a penny whistle. You're always it's a moving target at all times. So yeah, and each. It was hard to sight read this fast. I love sight reading, and I'm a great sight reader. I've done it all my life. But this one was, because just of the way that it was written, was like, oh
yeah, so Chicken in the Pot, like it sounds like it's in a couple different keys at the same time almost.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Were you listening to like a track while you were doing that?
Yes.
So you're hearing like the confluence of keys at the same time?
Yes. This was one of those moments where I just leaned into my ear. I'm a strong sight reader. I've always been able to sight read without rehearsal as a professional. But because this was feeling like 100 keys at once, and it was just so weird. And also, you don't want to get too caught up in the technical side of it, because you want to deliver the best performance. And that can be a huge issue with people wanting to branch out and get their voices more soloistic is that they can get so caught up in the rhythms on the page or the notes on the page as opposed to interpreting the scene and the character. So yeah, this was one of those moments where I just leaned into my own ear knowing like whatever key this is in, this is what's written. I see the B flat. I'm going to sing a B flat right now. But which is also wonky if you are reading a B flat, but then they, John at times would say like, okay, let's try it up a third and see what that sounds like. And that really, really messes with me. If I'm looking at a B flat, but I have to tell myself, but come in on a D flat, that just messes with my brain real hard.
Oh, do you have perfect pitch?
I do.
Oh, okay.
So that just was, and we did it in so many keys. So I would actually, let me back up. The chanteuse part was always like, this is it. This is her key. We're not going to mess with that. But the chicken, as you know, there are two versions.
Yes.
I think he has a name. He has like a
Lulio
nice name.
Primoc. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But as John and I called him, the chicken, was originally supposed to be female. And so that's why, and John wanted it as me with me.
Yes.
And that's what they originally approved of. And I can speculate why they went male for the film. I think, I don't know, but I know that Me Too happened at the end of October, November, December of 2017. And so in 2018, I don't know if maybe that had something to do with it. Like Disney wanted to have him be the smaller guy. That was something like we talked about, but I'm not making a political statement here. We were just wondering like, oh, I know that John really wanted his version to have the little alien voice. So that's what ended up staying on the soundtrack. Yeah. But for the film, the executives wanted a very male, like a super male voice.
Do you know the person who did it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what's in the film.
So that's my friend Reid Bruton. He is amazing. He is a fantastic, very, very low bass. And so that's what I'm saying. They wanted an unquestionably low bass voice to really distinguish the two. And
interesting. I feel like it's pretty distinguished as it is.
Yes.
With your two voices.
He's one of the lowest basses in town. He sings with the LA Master Chorale and he does opera work and he's on all the film scores. Just a fantastic singer and person. So that's like our little Reid and Baraka duet. And then, so that's what's confusing is because in the soundtrack, John wanted his version. And so that was what the compromise was, is John's version, the original version, and then the change up where Disney wanted a male for the film.
So the way, okay, so let's refresh your memory on, as if you need it, on the original version, which has the high and high. That's personally my favorite version, but it's the way that John Powell has described it in an interview is that I guess the album goes off like it goes off for not printing, whatever it's called, mastering or something, whatever, earlier than films are finished.
Oh,
and
okay.
So it was going to be that until the very last moment. I think he said like one of the last change he had to make was like they were on the dubbing stage and at the last minute we're saying like, it'd be funny if this chicken had a low voice. And then that was like the last thing that he did. And it was already too late to put it on the soundtrack because that had already been finished a long time ago. And so in the movie it was changed, which is why in the deluxe version of the soundtrack, it has the movie version because it couldn't make it to the original version. But yeah, he said it was like one of the last changes before the picture just like locked. Like that he had to really quickly call in Reid, do that, and then like the movie was basically out.
Yeah, because I mean, my final Huttese session was in March, and the film came out shortly after that.
So it already, as it was pretty close to the deadline.
Yeah. And I didn't mean to make like a political thing out of it. Like I just remember somebody said that, and I don't know who. I don't know if it was, but I just remember someone saying, "Oh, maybe it has to do with me too." And they wanted like a strong woman and a little guy, and I'm like, I don't know.
We don't know. That could have been why they thought it would be funny. I mean, I don't know. It could have. Everything that happens in movies behind the hood is like always. You never completely know unless you're talking to the primary source, really. I mean, I do think it was a hilarious change. I think it was. So, I mean, I remember everybody laughing in the theater when we saw it as soon as Reid's voice came out, because it just nobody expected that. So I do think it was a brilliant change. His little face. Sitting in formaldehyde.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the lyrics I'm going to put up on screen is these are the lyrics also transcribed by Auric fonts. And does this look correct to you? So this is based on his knowledge of Huttese and what he's pieced together from listening. So you have Je seta.
Je seta hambogo, do seta hambogo, and then do koda. So it's do koda is, so do is one word, and then koda is the next word.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then vu is by itself, and then laka jo. But you know what? It could have also been on my lyric sheet. Let me look. Yeah. It could have been also just spelled out phonetically. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to say
you separated the syllables wrong. Right.
Wana wanga lakajo.
Did you say wana wanga?
That's what's on my thing. Wana wanga lakajo.
Oh,
Jo is what we did.
That's funny. Okay.
Wana wanga it's like wanta wanga is what I have.
Right. Well, that's like a very famous Huttese phrase, like wana wanga. Oh. Yeah.
Wanda wanga. Yes. So I can tell you what this all means. I have a translation.
So we can also corroborate with this.
Yes. I say hamburger. You say hamburger. And then he goes, will you eat me? And then she says, I say cucumber. You say cucumber. And then he goes, why you eat me? Oh. And then they sing together, hungry friend, you look good enough to eat. Hungry friend, you look good enough to eat. Mm-hmm. And then the next one is, I say bologna, you say bologna. Will you eat me? I say mayonnaise, you say mayonnaise. Why you eat me? And then
that's really funny. Good. Well, good job, Auric fonts. You got most of it. And I'm pleased that we have some of those question marks filled in now.
Yes. Yeah. And John, I think the intention was like, this is the sophisticated being has the full sentences, and then the lesser being has kind of, why you eat me, like kind of creature-like intelligence. And I think in my sheet music, it says woman for my part, or for the part that I stayed in as. And then when I was singing the other one, it just says creature. So it was woman, then creature. Mm-hmm. And the creature is the one where we experimented a lot more on the pitch. And so I would sing it. I think I probably sang the creature part in 4 different keys at least. And then because we didn't want it to sound too unlike me, because if you sing it down a 4th and you bring it up that much, it sounds really chipmunky. Mm-hmm. And so we would experiment with me just doing it in a different voice, and then we would try it like a half step lower in my regular voice, and then pitch it up, and then we would try to half step lower in my weird voice, and then pitch that up. And so we kept listening back and going, okay, well now that sounds too small or too light, and also I needed to sound a little bit confused or scared or nervous. And again, I was singing it really fast.
Right. Oh my goodness.
So it was like, just very, very quick, and doing, the harmonies were always changing with each verse. So what we ended up doing was just me slightly down, but in a character voice, but only slightly, because if I went too small with my voice, then when we pitched it back up, it sounded really small and like chipmunky.
So when you talk about experimenting with different keys, you're exclusively talking about just for the purpose of then shifting it afterward. The final key was always going to be the final key, but
right. Yeah, it's a great little tool to just make things sound a little bit less human, because we're always going to put it back to this. But what if we took the whole track down, you sang it here, and then we took that and put it back into the key it's supposed to be, and it just morphed the voice just enough. But, you can also just do that by morphing your own voice. It was really like, what are we after? What's the tone? So it took a minute to just play, and then I think we even did something where I sang it really deep. Like I sang it with like a really wanna laka. And then we took that, we brought it down to sound bassy. And then we were like, no, we're going to get a guy. And so we did a bunch. Now that I'm remembering, it was so fun. You got to be really goofy at some point with it, and it's like finger painting. You just see what you come up with.
I mean, I think that definitely comes through in the recording. And I think it is, I don't know, there's so much freedom in, especially the ends of the phrases, like you mentioned. Like it's interesting to hear you talk about intentionally doing the sort of, the little slide down after the phrases. And we'll hear a little bit in a second, because it really, like, when it slowed down, because your main vocal was higher and then pitched down, you said. So
my main vocal is the same pitch. I always ended up singing that. Yeah. So the main vocal is the pitch that you hear.
Oh, right.
I mean,
the slower
fast tempo.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you did it fast, but when it slowed down, it is really exaggerated. Yeah. Let's listen to some isolated. It's a little bit. It sounds weird because it's of the isolation. Stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, you do quite a bit of quite a fall to your voice.
Yeah, so there's this term we use with, I think it comes from opera, Sprechstimme. It's a German term, and it means speak, sing. And so there would be times where that wasn't notated, but John and he would say, yeah, maybe she's getting more salivating, like, she's getting ready to eat it. Like we could amp up the hunger, the predator. And so we played with what would that sound like if the end of the phrases was more of a question mark or a statement. And then he wanted me to fill in the gaps with hunger sounds, like, oh, tasty. Oh, yeah. Like, oh. So that's where you hear, oh. And I was like, I hope this doesn't sound the wrong way. Like, I hope this just sounds hungry.
It sounds both.
Yeah. And so there's a little, like, so, and then you were saying earlier, like, how do you keep the voice? And so I was kind of biting my lips forward a lot. So like on the chorus, Pati sake fondo, I did more of like, Pati sake fondo. So it was kind of bringing almost like my teeth together and kind of biting the lips so that and I'm trying to overemphasize consonants at times as well. Because,
why is that?
Again, because I wanted it to sound hungry and lusty, and when you grab your consonants, that it just makes a world of difference. Really, it's like a great trick I use with any emotion. If you want to sound more desperate or more emotive, if you can punch your consonants or anticipate them at times, doesn't quite always work for choral music because anticipating consonants interrupts the vowels. But as a soloist, it's a great tool for amplifying an emotion, and it could be opposite emotions. And so, again, I'm singing this really fast, but instead of singing like properly, you would open up the vowel. Pa, ti, sa, che, fondo. And so it was, for me, it was pa, ti, sa, che, fondo. It was kind of grabbing forward and then again, stay nasal, but a little breathy. So it was really cool.
Which is very different from if you were singing like Duel of the Fates or something like that, which would be super vowely.
Like number one rule with singing. Any student that works with me, always elongate the vowel, draw out the vowel. The consonant is the last piece. You just hit the consonant, you will open right up to the vowel. So it's totally meant for the character to be kind of grabbing it. And also, I think that when I did the chicken, I think I opened the vowel. I'm trying to remember. I'd have to listen again. But I think that the chicken was, scared and nervous and confused. So I think I didn't do that on purpose. I think I opened the chicken up more.
Oh.
It was a little bit more trembly.
Let's listen to a little bit more. I especially like the sixth part. Sixths. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I can hear that. I love the strings there. It's definitely not as consonanty on the backup vocal, on the high voice.
Yeah. So that voice, you can hear on the kamishkalakayu, there's this like, are you gonna eat me? Like it's the question mark. So that was something we were trying to convey is, wait a second, what's happening? And actually, sorry, the lyric right there is hungry friend, you look tasty enough to eat or whatever. So that's not the question, but there was just, I'm a little nervous and scared and
right. Like, I know this is part of our act, right? Right?
Wait, what? Yeah. So it was as much as we could. And we worked a lot on entering with like a nervousness. And again, but this was very fast. So
I can't even imagine it that fast.
I wish I had a record. Like it was totally different.
That's it. So much is crystallizing in my head at this moment because it does, like, everything sounds so elongated in a way that I can't like articulate because it's probably happening at a subconscious level, like with sample rates or something happening with the stretching or something. Like I can almost feel that it was recorded faster, but that it's slower. Like it has a trip hop quality to it. Like this song sounds like pretty trip hoppy to me. And I've been trying to figure out like why it's like, what makes it sound so trippy? Because it's not just like the key clashes alone. It's not that alone. It's like so many elements kind of making you feel like you're kind of having a little slight trip.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild, especially because we would audition what it sounded like as we did it and then slow it down and listen and then listen and find, okay, you have to somehow communicate that when it's super fast because it really matters when it's slow. So it was like an extra attention to detail. And there's so much. I feel like session singing is juggling on a tightrope because it if anything is ever so slightly off, it just doesn't work. And it could be something like your breath or your pronunciation or, your pitch or the delivery. It didn't sound scared enough. Or now we don't sound like the same version. Verse 2 sounds too different from verse 1. Or can you make that a question? Or so you are definitely taking in all the direction at once and the language work and the character voice and the emotion, but also all the musicality, which is this is really precise microtonal, the B flat to the D flat versus the D natural. And da 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 da. I mean, that's not easy to sing. So it was a high level of taking in every note and not going too far with it. And I think this is a really common thing that we hear in our session work is you're given a direction, then you do it, and they go, we'll split the difference. Now we've gone too far. Yeah. So it's always looking for that third bowl of porridge. It's like the game of Goldilocks. So yeah, I know you probably hear that too as a violinist. It's always, can you sing it with more of a smile? Okay, well now we sound too Disney. Okay, well don't sound too trained, but still sound really good, but just don't make it,
What's funny is that I often find that they need to hear the extreme other version. It's often just better to just get that out of their system and let them say split the difference. I think it makes them feel better to hear the extremes and then to tell you to go in the middle rather than you do your best and land in the middle. Then they're like, well,
yeah, that feeling of oh, we can even be more crisp, more staccato. And you're like, okay, here's staccato. And they're like, oh, well, still let it have a breathing room,
Then suddenly their container for what's possible has expanded and they feel more where you land is their choice
right.
Before when you said with the microtonal, did you just mean the chromatic aspect of it?
Yeah. I mean, in the sense that I knew everything was going to be slowed down. So when I did a portamento slide or when I did little things, that would actually very much add up to be not simple, a westernized chromatic scale. That we were going to go into little bends. And he was still being experimental as well with what does the mouthpiece add to it? Do I do something to your voice to make it sound like the mouthpiece? We were still playing with that. And I had to also, that was another thing I was thinking, this woman has a mouthpiece on, so I can't be too open. I do need to kind of sing through the mouthpiece. And so there was that aspect as well that was in my mind. And then her body work, just making it really fluid. So, I mean, it's a ton of different directions all flowing in your head at once, making it into one cohesive juggling act, as opposed to thinking I'm juggling 8 different balls. I'm juggling. They're all at once. They're all happening together. But it takes a second, right?
Absolutely. When you, since you did record this demo and you went in, two different times, right? You said how do you remember the placement that you used originally? Can you just listen to the recording and then kind of get back in that mindset? I think doing re-records, is that ever stressful?
Yeah, I mean, it can be if it's a voice that I don't really feel like I really knew what I was doing. Thankfully, that wasn't so different than my natural voice. It was just sort of lean into a nasal, breathy, kind of mouthpiecey, I kind of knew what I had done in terms of vocal tone. The enunciation was up to me. And since it was a new language, I just knew, I mean, I've definitely watched all the Star Wars films multiple times and I've done a lot of language work. And so I'm used to, it bugs me if somebody does a language and I can hear their accent, they haven't accomplished what they set out to do in my mind. If I'm going to sing in Italian, you should be convinced that I'm a fluent speaker. Mm-hmm. And so that was important to me. That's always been important to me with my language work, is that you really analyze where are the diphthongs, where's the tongue placement, and why when someone says hola, can I tell that they're not a native speaker? Even just with one word, hola does not sound native because we're chewing our diphthongs. O is the Americanized O. It's actually 2 vowels, oh. Whereas in Spanish, it's o, and there's no diphthongs. So hola is the more non-accented way to pronounce those vowels. So anyway, that's already a mindset that I have when I go into language work. And so it felt congruent. Like, as long as you don't think I suddenly sound way huskier or way brighter, typically my voice is a fairly well-oiled machine at this point. It took a long time to get there, but I wasn't like waking up with a hoarse voice or, some other situation anymore at that point, which I used to. I used to be like, oh, now I'm an alto and I can't sing my high notes because, the singer lifestyle is kind of nuts. You have to always be on. You have to always be warmed up. And that's affected by what you eat and drink and how often you're talking and, whether you have a sinus infection or
Does
an
your sleep
allergy.
impact it?
Oh, yeah. Your sleep, your air. I mean, we're really big on our air filters at my house, our water filtration, what kind of coffee I drink. I stay away from dairy and fizzy drinks and alcohol. So it's a whole lifestyle. And that takes a while to kind of understand your instrument and what your body's needs are. So even when you're like, I'm low maintenance, and then you're like, oh, I'm a singer, I guess I'm high maintenance.
Right.
So,
as low maintenance as you can be.
Right, exactly.
So when you do, like, since you do so much session work, like I know that you've done over 400 films, TV shows, video games, commercials. How, like, when you are recording things, do you try to order your, workload in a day or a week so that you can morph from like similar kinds of voices to other ones, so you're not switching from like some extremes, so you can kind of keep things in the same sort of placement. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I don't usually have that luxury.
Right.
That's a great thought. Just this last few days, let's see, Saturday I recorded like a new age, like really soft, ooh, ah, breathy thing that was high soprano. And then Sunday I did a kids choir. I was one of the kids. And that was also really high and soft and oohs and ahs and kind of pure. And then Sunday night I did a high belting commercial that was like soulful. And I did soprano, alto, and tenor.
Oh my God.
And then yesterday,
tracking over yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I track myself a lot where I have the whole choir of me.
Yeah.
And then yesterday I did a choir, just an octet, and it was totally a cappella, very reminiscent of Jacob Collier or Eric Whitacre, elements of both of them for a pop song. And it was really clean oohs and lyrics and ahs, straight tone, and I was alto, and it was one on a part octet, so everything was rubbing, and I would hold down, for example, like my pitch was a D, but the tenor on my left was toggling between C, D, C, D, C, D, and then the alto 2 on my right was singing the D, E, D, E, D, E, because it was a crunch, and then my job was just to hold the D.
That's steady.
Well, all of the dissonance. So I feel like every day is a totally different day. And tomorrow I'm directing for Disney. I'm directing kid vocals for a show. So I do a lot of directing as well. And it just, every day is totally different. So I do a lot of voiceover auditions. Every day almost I have a voiceover audition, if not many. And I save that for nighttime. To answer your question, like, do I have a schedule? So, well, first of all, I have a 4-year-old daughter. So unless I can do it during the day while she's at school, but often I'm already doing other stuff. But after her bedtime, I come in my office and I do all my voiceover auditions. And that I do stack. So I will start with the highest, like, oh, we're doing a voice up here. And I'll do everything like that. And then I'll work my way down to the alto. And then I'll be really husky and really breathy or whatever. And then if I have to do any efforts, like, all the video game efforts, which are terrible for your voice,
Right.
I usually will not do too many. I'll be like, that's what you get on my audition. And that's typically the way in a voiceover session. If they'll save the efforts for the end. And if you're with a good director, they'll be like, just give us 2. Great. We got it. So they don't blow out your voice.
Yeah. Wow. That's how do you get through so many things so fast? That's pretty amazing.
I did go through a lot of vocal issues early in my career because I just didn't have the stamina for it. I didn't have all the lifestyle stuff down. I had allergies, acid reflux. I had postnasal drip. I had pre-nodules forming on my vocal cords. I needed to do speech therapy and vocal rest. And I went vegan and I was on multiple medications and I was getting allergy shots twice a week. I had to do a ton.
Wow.
Yeah, to just figure out my body and my voice and what was working, what was making me feel hoarse or scratchy or strained. And I would do a vocal rest every weekend. I would be silent Friday through Sunday and just
Wow.
text or write all my thoughts or lip read. My husband got really good at lip reading. And that was like a 4-month period early on in my post-college professional singing days. I was also a choir director for full time before I became a session singer. And my voice would just get blown out from directing large groups of kids in really large auditoriums. Like I'm not a yeller, but even just overusing my voice and not having all those tools lined up. So I think I probably am that much more resilient. It's kind of like what you said about giving somebody too much so they have a larger scope of, I feel like I was so unhealthy that I had to work so much harder than the average person who doesn't have multiple vocal issues. So now I'm super healthy. And now in some cases I'm more healthy because I'm so aware because I had to go through all of that. So I'm super aware of unhealthy vocal habits or eating, the whole lifestyle aspect of maintaining a voice that can get through all day singing day after day after day after day and not go through any vocal trauma. It's because I went through and I had therapy and on my voice. I had to do speech therapy and exercises. I was like talking to myself all day with these exercises that my coach gave me. Like one of them was, one of them was to say, 1, 2, 3. And I'd just be walking around my house, 4, just trying not to vocal fry. It's a great one because is like what we do when we're not thinking. Yeah. You know, so I'm like, that's my real voice. And then I would say, 1, and I would fry. So I had to bring my voice back.
It's heartening to hear that like you went through all of that and figured things out. I've definitely, I have had my own vocal struggles. And so certain things that I would do are like pretend I'm talking to my cat, where I'd go like, hey, Anakin, or like, so the I think would have really helped me at a certain time. It probably would still help me as well too. Like I got caught up in this, like also just doing a lot of talking, just like having to do so much. And like for like years, I got trapped in like speaking in like a really low voice and like got really stuck in that and didn't know how to get out of it. And I would just lose my voice like every day. I was just always losing my voice. It was just hurting so much. Yeah. And had just frying all the time because yeah.
Well, and also a good sign that you're healthy is if you can sing without a delayed onset. And so that's where if you just go ooh versus ooh with a big H, that's a delayed onset. That's where the chords are swollen. So I think just going through that process, really, it taught me so much about vocal anatomy and the muscle and the air and the larynx placement. I mean, there are just so many things. I'm so grateful I had to have gone through that, even though it was so hard and it was very scary. And now I can identify it and I can be better for it with others to help other people and give them those exercises too. Like I've heard people say things about, like I know a person who said cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me because they got through it and it changed their lives in a positive way. It helped illuminate how precious their lives were. And it got them starting to check things off their list that they were not moving forward with before the cancer. And so not that I'm comparing vocal trauma to cancer, but I guess the way that I sang back then was not sustainable for the career that was going to be in my future. And now I can sing 12-hour days, which I do. We have 12-hour session days.
Oh, and that stamina is so important when you're a session singer. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. One of the longest sessions I did was for Hairspray Live. And we did a 14-hour session, and that was an entire Broadway musical. It was 26 songs. And I don't know if you know the music to Hairspray, but it is not easy music. Like, I'm going to mess up the words, but there's like, an emotion of the ocean and a son of a today, you can't stop the emotion. And you just keep, there's like nowhere to breathe. It was just belting, 26 songs, 14 hours. And the next day I had a different session and my voice was fine. It's just, it's just crazy. I could not have done that without having gone through all the therapy, the vocal therapy that I went through and the rehabilitation.
And I bet it like helped you even expand what you could do expressively with your voice.
Right. Yeah, your voice starts to feel like you're singing through a noose and you're talking and you're husky. And I will say there is a point where you do have to just rest because like any other athlete, you can pitch a perfect baseball game, but you probably shouldn't pitch 9 innings every single day of the week. Like you need to ice your arm and massage and rest and take a break and rotate out with other people. So I have a lot of compassion for singers who blow out their vocal cords and if they're you look at their touring schedules and they're just constantly on. And then there's interviews and there's parties afterwards. And those parties are loud. And, you know, the best thing you can do for your voice is not use it for a second after that and take some anti-inflammatories or whatever the doctor prescribes. But yeah it's athletic.
Totally. I toured with Ariana Grande, obviously as a violinist, not a singer, but for, you know, because she like, you know, actually sings at her shows. And, it would be so rare to have back-to-back nights. It was usually concert day on, concert day off, concert day on, concert day off. And she was really good at doing vocal rest or, you know, warming up and doing everything to keep her voice running. It's so much. I couldn't imagine like if she had to belt that show every single day.
Yeah. My heart goes out to all the Broadway people who are doing 8 shows a week. I mean,
that's
just
brutal.
Well, and I think a lot of them, that's the lifestyle is like during the day, they're quiet. They're using steam treatments. They're rebuilding the voice. And I feel like there's a Pavarotti quote out there somewhere. I can't find it. Somebody mentioned it. Maybe they're misquoting him. It's somebody else. But it was something like every day I get up and I rebuild my voice. Like from scratch.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yeah, that's what it feels like.
Wow. So kind of like another thing that since your voice you're called upon to do so much. And I feel like you must have some sort of a sense in the industry of like what trends are, I don't know, like, do you ever get calls in a year for like one type of voice where you've never used to get calls for that type of voice, but like maybe Hamilton style singing is like really everyone wants to do that, or like everyone wants to do certain types of things? Like, are there just new styles, new things that you notice you're called in for a lot?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all the new stuff, it's always added on to what people also will always love and always want. So you're always going to get the classical film choir sound. That's needed for scores. With pop music constantly changing and trending, definitely. Like I remember suddenly a lot of people wanting the Halsey sound. I'm like, who's Halsey? I don't know who this is. And so, you know, studying her voice or even if you go back, I remember a lot of people wanted me to do Katy Perry, and I was studying how she sings, and I actually do a pretty dead-on Katy Perry, but it hurts. It hurts my voice to sound like her because of what I have to do to sound like her. It's I'm over pushing the muscle, and I'm making it much huskier and scratchier. Same with Adele. I would say, when there's a really popular artist, people want you to sound like them, and it's hard when that singer is husky or scratchy or they sound like they're pushing, because it's not necessarily always a healthy sound, but it's emotive. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have to toggle between, okay, how do I do this healthfully? How much can I cheat? And because, you know, nobody wants to hear what's supposed to sound like Adele and then it's all clean and crisp. Like it needs to have that gut behind it. And so you start leveraging, I can do a few takes like this. And it's not the healthiest, but it's what they're asking for. I actually love when people ask me to sound like Billie Eilish.
Really?
So that, oh yeah, it's so easy. It's so soft and gentle. And it's a lot of people hire me for like really belty and really high energy stuff or really young. And so I'm just waiting for the calls to just soft, jazzy. So that's just
really close mic'd.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. It's so easy on my voice. I could do that all day. Like if I'm just singing around my house, it's going to be jazz. It's going to be like soulful or hymns or, just not so pushed and not so grabbed and tight. And yeah, I did a song recently for someone and the reference was, they wanted me to sound like Billy. And what was the song?
Was it Bad Guy?
I don't know. It wasn't Bad Guy. I know the song that I sang for the composer. I'm trying to remember what the Billy reference was.
Oh. Was it one of her jazzy?
No. Oh my gosh. This is going to bug me. Because I know the song that he wrote. Anyway, it was something like, I got really close to my mic and I just was like, run, run, run away. Yes, I do. Something like that. Something like that.
I know what song you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just the easiest thing. Yeah. And I'm not actually, I'm saying that as a compliment. I like that trend so much more than the, kind of squeezing your high notes out and pushing as hard as you can. Which, I mean, it sells and it sounds passionate, but if you sing every day like that, it adds up.
Totally.
So,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think like, oh, sorry. Go
oh
ahead.
no, I know exactly what song you're thinking about, but I just also can't remember the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to bug me. But I also think like I did all the demos for La La Land and that was cool because
like before the actors came in.
Yeah. So like right when they were writing the songs, like they'd never had anybody sing them. So they needed a demo singer. And that's a great story too, maybe for another day, how that all happened. But when I was doing those demos, it was like, this is a musical, but we don't want anyone to sound musical theater. That's not the style. It is a musical that is not musical theater. It is more pedestrian, more down to earth, sound like a normal person who's a good singer. And so it was, again, like toggling that fine-toothed just detail of, I'm not a bad singer, but I don't want to sound trained.
Oh, how do you even do that?
Right? And I get that a lot. A lot of people need me to sound like the singing voice of an actress who's on camera who's not cutting it. So I have to listen to her talking and then...
That's such a specific request.
Yes. And so I'm the singing voice of this actress. So I listen to her talk and I kind of place where her timbre is and her general tone. And then they give me the song. And sometimes the song is in a good key and sometimes it's not. I'm like, I'm not going to sound like her in this key. I'm going to have to do a lot more work. But we get there. And it's like you can't add crisp diction and clear, enunciation and training and vibrato. And it needs to feel like your everyday person singing.
Wow. I feel like that would be really difficult if it didn't sit in the, like, I don't know, if you didn't naturally sit in a key that would translate. Because I feel like speaking as a pedestrian myself, like it's much more obvious when like untrained singers are singing. Not that it sounds bad, but I think where the break is between like where the break in the voice is, it's just more obvious. Like when we transition to like belting or something, like it's not really as hidden. So I feel, and oftentimes like that is used to great effect for when people sing, like, flipping from, I don't know if there's like better words for just like chest and head or whatever, just switching to like a sort of a different timbre. And for someone who is accustomed to like being fluid throughout like a whole range, I wonder how you would even like, I don't know, fake that or like just decide artificially place that.
It's kind of like temporarily unlearning what you've learned. it's going back. And so if you can access a previous version of yourself that didn't have a developed mixed voice where you only had chest and head and you broke. So I know people like that. They're like, man, when I was a kid, I would yodel between my breaks, but then I did all this training and now I have a mixed voice and now I can't undo that and go back to the break. And that's exactly what yodeling is. It's just breaking the chest into a head. And so if you can go back to a previous version of yourself and just it goes back to inhabiting the character, this is somebody who has not done all this breath work. This is somebody who doesn't know about diphthongs and, placing all of your consonants strategically. So and again, so much of what we do is playful and back and forth and, try it this way and split the difference. And what would it sound like that? And so as long as there's room for experimentation, then you end up finding it, and you can find it fairly quickly too. What's brutal, which I don't like, is auditions where you get one chance. I hate that. I am not an auditioner. I don't, especially in person, because at least if I'm auditioning from home, I can kind of play with my voice until I go, yeah, there it is. But man, you go into an audition and you get one chance, and if you didn't happen to read their minds, or if they don't give you any feedback, like, try it just a little bit warmer or a little bit less, that's tough. It always makes me nervous if I do a session for a new composer and they go, that's great, awesome, let's move forward. I'm like, you don't want to hear it a few more ways? Like, you're happy? What? I feel like that's the collaboration is so built into the job that it's almost foreign to me when someone just is happy the first pass.
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, but what are you hearing in that? What do you like about that?
Yeah.
Well, when you were doing something like this, where you were already selected, like you were already contracted to do this. It's not like you were auditioning for John Powell when you were there. What were the common, how was your first take for him?
Yeah. Probably just fun and laughing and trying it out. John is so easygoing, and he's sitting there like, all right, so here's the song, here's the situation. Do you want to practice it? Do you want to listen to it? Do you want to just give it a go? That's, he's just sort of up for what do you want to do? And I know some people really like rehearsing and practicing. I don't. I'm like, press play, let's go. Let's just try. Let's almost rehearse, but while recording, just in case it's amazing.
I like to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I could ever withstand the long rehearsal processes of other forms of singing, where Broadway, where they just rehearse. I just like to sight read and just carve it out as you're going. No need to, beat yourself over the head with it. So
yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
And how long was your session? You said you were there all day?
Oh, no, probably just a few hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember if the strings were all already laid down, the instrumental?
Well, I remember, I definitely was singing with an instrumental, and I would guess there were probably strings. I don't know if they were live or if they were just pads, from his studio, temp. Because they changed the tempo, I'm going to guess those hadn't been laid down in person yet, because we were still going back and forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I've heard a portion of the instrumental from Chicken in the Pot in one other spot in the movie, and it has led me to wonder if it's sampled from itself. And I think one thing that makes me have the trip hoppy feeling with this song is that the vocals sound so fluid, and so just the tonality of the vocals is so shifty, and it's so, I don't know, lugubrious. No, lugubrious isn't the right word. Just flexible and stretchy. And the instrumental sounds like it was recorded at the correct pitch. It sounds more tightly diatonic. It sounds, more clean cut, basically. So it sounds the vocal is in outer space, and the instrumental is more grounded. And then when they're put together, it's so delightful.
Oh my gosh. I love this analysis. I've never listened that deeply to the instrumental.
Yeah, well, I have way too many times. Way too many times.
Yes, that's incredible. I'm going to have to listen down paying attention to the strings because I'm not a string player. I'm not really focusing in on that. But that would totally make sense that that's where your ear goes.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting for me to like kind of try to separate in my head the two sides, because the first time I heard Chicken in the Pot, I was like, whoa, this whole thing is like everywhere. But then when I actually like parsed it out more fully, I realized actually the instrumental is like kind of in one place, and then it's the vocals that are like all everywhere.
Yes.
And so, yeah. By the way, I have an answer to your, I mean, not that you were actually asking this, but like for people who are curious why that character has something on her face, there is a canon explanation for what that is.
Oh my gosh.
It is a multivocoder that boosts her voice to non-human frequencies. So it's so that everyone can enjoy her voice.
Wow.
So
I'm so impressed. The fan base for Star Wars is just completely unparalleled.
I thought you were going to say unhinged. Both would work.
No. No, maybe unhinged, but also unparalleled. It's just the levels that the fans go to dissect. Like I've sung on so many other films, but Star Wars is the one where people are like, whoa. This, and we're going to analyze everything. And I love that the lyrics were translated and that the song was transcribed, and oh, that's just so cool.
I think I always love how individual performers who are not necessarily invested in the Star Wars universe in the creation or even privy to details about what they are even performing at the time that they're performing them. I'm always fascinated by the way that individual performers can influence things that get seeped into like quote unquote canon, like storyline, because eventually those things, you know, the artifacts of performance, people will find reasons for them and then build off of them. And then before you know it, like something that started out with maybe an actor, just peculiarity or just like the accent that a singer decided to use or whatever, and can end up being built into something much more. So there's still years to come, but I feel like, I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if on screen we see some like more characters speaking Huttese with like a posh accent. Like I feel like that's the wave of the future of Huttese in Star Wars. I feel like we're going to start seeing that a little bit more. I'm calling it.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I hadn't even thought about like just the accent that, I mean, John was just like, yeah, you know, however you think she would sound on this. And so we didn't, that was not something that anybody micromanaged. I had free reign. So there you go. I've left my mark.
You've left your mark. Just like in the originals, that's really cool. Lando would say like some people would say Leia or Leia, and then there'd be like Han versus Han. And so in like Solo, they've retained like the original way that Billy D. Williams would say Han instead of Han. And like that whole, just that pronunciation is just like part of Star Wars now. It's just known that you can say his name both ways, and that Lando pronounces his A's like Han, Falcon.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I love that.
So here you are.
Oh my gosh.
Baraka May, creator of Star Wars accents.
Of the Posh Huttese.
Yes, that is the mark you are leaving, the Posh Huttese.
Wow. If I've done one good thing in my life.
Let it be this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did enjoy when it first came out. People were like, the Portuguese singer, the French singer. I'm like, no. It's Posh Huttese, everybody. Posh Huttese.
There we go. That's really funny. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I do want to ask you the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Okay. So question number 1 is, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Okay. Otherworldly. Epic. And and unexpected.
Ooh. That was unexpected.
I didn't rehearse this. So
Perfect. I love spontaneous ones. And question number 2, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you wouldn't mind learning more about?
Oh, goodness. I think it would be cool to get more in depth between the collaborative composers. So you've got John Williams, but then Michael Giacchino has his hand in it. And now we've got Ludwig on the Mandalorian, and then we've got John Powell. And I think it would be really cool to discuss the nuances of composers passing on this sacred baton and sort of collaborating, borrowing from each other's themes and how that intersects.
Yeah, that's always something that I would like to know more about too. There's so much history and behind Star Wars music. It just to blend everything that came before with what you are doing now and putting your own creative stamp on it as a composer seems like such a big thing. Right. There's way more weight to it. Like you can't just be like, I'm scoring music to a film, because it's this is not just any film. This is like a priceless, very, very beloved franchise. And you, how much of it do you weave in? And how much do you reference? And how much do you make original? Mm-hmm. And whatever you do, people are going to have an opinion about it. Yes, they will. Yes. Final question is, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
Oh gosh, so many.
You can give a few answers.
The first one that comes to mind, I'm going to say, is the Lord of the Rings soundtrack for all 3. Mm-hmm. The Edward Scissorhands soundtrack. It's a big one. And
Danny Elfman did that?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Whom you got to work with? Yep.
I work with Danny a lot. So
you do?
I do, because I tour with him. I do
for Nightmare.
The Nightmare Before Christmas. We've gone all over and done the show 20-something times. And then I also just did his Coachella show, and we're going to be doing that at the Hollywood Bowl this coming Halloween. Wow. And and it's not Nightmare. It's all of his original stuff. But even before Nightmare, I've done a lot of his scores. I've sung for his films. And then we did in 2013 and 14, we did the film or the music of Danny Elfman from the films of Tim Burton. And so it was 15 suites. So we did Edward Scissorhands and Coraline and Pee Wee Herman and Batman and just everything. We did all of that music.
Wow.
So I'm very well versed with his music.
Who do you play in the Nightmare show? I've seen it at the Hollywood Bowl several years ago. So I probably have seen you. So. Oh
my gosh. Yay. Yeah. That show, it started out with me as Sally and also Shock. And, anything that was Catherine, and then also any of the soprano or high, like the kid, the little corpse child, and the witches, just any female or high-voiced characters. I was a soprano. And then when the show took off, Danny was like, okay, we're doing this at the Bowl. We're getting Ken, Catherine, Paul. We're getting as many of the leads as we can. So then since then, I just supplement for Catherine for all the rehearsals. I still do Sally and everything as an understudy. But I still am the corpse child and one of the witches and a bunch of other ancillary characters like the bat and one of the vampires. Yeah.
That's so much fun. Okay, so you said Lord of the Rings and Edward Scissorhands. Did you have any else that you wanted to add? Or are you good?
I'm just going to say those for now because there's so many.
There are, I know.
I'm also watching a lot of films with my 4-year-old for the first time. So I just showed her The Land Before Time and An American Tale, stuff from our millennial childhoods. I'm like, oh, that music is so good. American Tale, the violin in there is gorgeous.
Oh, I'll have to revisit that.
Yeah. And I sing Fifel Song to her at night somewhere out there. So Yeah, that's a special one. In the Land Before Time. Is that James Horner?
I honestly am not sure. I just know that there's a ton of Land Before Time movies, and I'm definitely like obsessed with dinosaurs. Probably that contributed.
Okay.
But
I mix
right.
up a few. Yeah, I can't remember who. I think it was James Horner, but I might be wrong. But at least one of them, either American Tail or Land Before Time. But they're both great scores.
Yeah.
And anything John Williams.
Seriously.
Jurassic Park. I mean,
yeah. I'm seeing him at the Hollywood Bowl in a couple weeks, so pretty excited about that. Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you one bonus question, just because Make Solo 2, it trends on sometimes, and I don't know if you're aware of that movement. Make Solo 2 happen. Okay, well, you can buy shirts, Make Solo 2 happen. I had both of the creators of Make Solo 2 happen, Lacey and John, on this podcast for this season. Of course they had to come on to talk about Solo. And
oh my gosh,
they sell shirts, Make Solo 2 happen. It's like a Twitter hashtag, Make Solo 2 happen. Anyway, so in the event that Solo 2 were to happen, or if it were to be made into some sort of a Disney Plus show, if this were to happen, if your character got to come back, if you got to do another song, what do you think? First of all, would you do it?
Yes.
And second of all, just like in your wildest of imaginations, based on, I don't know, whatever you think of this character, not much has been like written about this character specifically yet, but what do you think like one of your songs would be called?
Oh my god!
Like in universe.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, did she eat the chicken?
That's what I'm curious.
We need to know.
Mike, also, do you think you're still going to be playing with do you think you're going to have a new chicken? Same chicken, or?
I mean, yeah, like, is her belly all full because the chicken didn't get digested and it's like singing from her belly now? Like, that could be really cool. Come on, let's think outside of the box, right? So maybe she eats him, but he's the type of creature that doesn't get digested. And so he becomes one with her. And now that's the act, is like the two of them singing, and the vocoder, the double vocoder over her face is now also like attached over here. And then he's like singing through her stomach.
Wow. Yeah. Do you still have to pay them separately, do you think?
I mean, they share a bed, but like it's like conjoined twin situation, so they're still two individuals.
Wow. All right.
I don't know what the song would be called though. Like, I should have done more research maybe on this species before eating him. That would be great.
Indigestion.
I would love indigestion.
Regrets. Yeah.
Yes. And I would love Reid is such an amazing singer. That would be so fun.
Well, once again, thank you. This has been really fun to talk to you. Where can people like listen to you? What's a good place for people to get, hear your other work and check you out and stuff?
Oh, well, I have a website, barakamay.com, and that I keep it up to date with my work with artists and projects. And I have a singing page on one of the tabs where it has a bunch of my clips in different styles. I don't have as much up on like other websites, like Instagram I don't really post too much about my work on there, but it's fun. I'm a fun person to follow because I do funny things and books and stuff. I would say just my website, and then I have my IMDb page, and I don't really want to be a solo artist, so I don't put my own work out there, but I do put out like my demos and stuff that I'm working. But yeah, I would say Instagram and my website.
Nice. Yeah. Check out her website. Check out her voice reel that has just like all these examples, like all in like 1 or 2 minutes. It's like, oh my goodness. So many different voices. And also just like, I never would have guessed that was the same person. So yeah, fantastic.
Oh, thank you. And I'll say, I just sang on Disney's The Ghost and Molly McGee on almost every episode. So that's where I was just realizing. You can hear me a lot on that show. And
awesome.
I also sang a lot on Centaur World on Netflix. And yeah, I'm just trying to remember if there's any other shows. Yeah, I do a lot of Disney and animation. So that's where you can hear me.
How fun. So yes, go check out Baraka, and Star Wars Music Minute is on all of the social medias whatever they're all called. There's so many of them now. So you can find us on YouTube or listen wherever podcasts are made. I don't know, are hosted, are casted, whatever. And I hope you enjoyed this special bonus episode for solo season. May the Force be with you, and see you next time on Star Wars Music Minute.